All right, so what did we do yesterday? We did what? Law of sine. So what are we going to do today?
Cosines.
Law of cosines. You shouldn't miss a day because it's all online, right?
True.
Yeah, you should. All right, here we go. Let me just write down what the law of cosines says. It's only one formula for the law. Actually, they write it as three different ones, but I write it as one. I write it as one formula, and we're going to write it like this. It starts off looking very, very close to the Pythagorean theorem, all right? You know Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? But we're going to write it the other way around. I'm going to write the c squared first. So what's it going to start off looking like? It's going to be c squared equals what? I said it starts off just like Pythagorean theorem. So it's going to be what? C squared equals a squared, what? Plus b squared, okay? But then you got to tag a little bit more on the end, all right? So write this down. It's minus 2ab. And you say, it says law of cosines. I don't see any cosines. So guess what's next? Cosine of angle C. This is a big C. This is a little c, all right? Which means what? What's the relationship between this angle C and this side C? They must be across from each other. They must be opposite of each other, okay? So they are opposite, okay? So this side is opposite this angle. Now, the book sometimes does this. I wouldn't even write this next part down, but the book does this. They write a squared equals, now, if you wanted to solve for a, what are the other two sides? If you have a, b, and c, what are the other two sides? B squared plus c squared, right? Minus 2. Now, what do you think is going to go next to this? This was AB because this was A and B. What do you think this is going to be? B and C. Now, instead of cosine of angle C, what are you going to put? Cosine of what? Angle A. Because what? Because this angle is opposite this side. Does that make sense? All right. Now, the book actually writes it three different ways. I kind of like this way. This is the way I've always learned. This is the way most books usually show the law of cosines. All right, if they could pick one formula for law of cosines, they usually show it like this. You could also get b by itself, couldn't you? So you could say b squared. So what do you think this would be then? If this is b squared, it'd be a squared plus what? C squared minus 2 what? AC, and then cosine of angle B. Again, do you see that? So that angle and that side right there have to be opposite each other. And then the A, side A is opposite that angle A. So whatever side is out here by itself, that angle has to be the angle that's opposite that side. Does that make sense? All right. Now remember we talked about using the law of sines. What different situations did we use the law of sines with? Like angle, what?
Side angle.
Side angle is one of them, right? Angle side angle is another one. And then it was angle side, wasn't it? I think that was it, wasn't it? Okay. Now, for the law of cosines, you're going to use side angle side and side side. All right. So for the law, I'll write law of cosines down again. Law of cosines. This is when you use the law of cosines. When you have side. Yeah. Go ahead. Or side angle side. Okay, so if you have side and side angle side, you can use the law of cosines. You would not be able to use the law of sines if you had just three sides given. All right, because remember, you got to know on the law of sines, you got to know three of the four things, right? So there's two sides and two angles. If you only know three sides, you don't know any angles, you can't use the law of law of sines at all, right? With that. Okay, same thing with this. So let's do one. Right? Let's do one with the law of cosines. So let me draw. I'm taking these right from the example. So if you look in your book, you'll see the same exact examples right in your book. Now again, it doesn't depend on what kind of triangle you have. I mean, you can have an acute triangle, you can have an obtuse triangle. It really doesn't depend on that. It just depends on what they give you, what information is given. Right? And on this one, they tell you, let's put this in color here. They tell you that this side is 11. They tell you this side, or this angle, sorry, is 28 degrees. And they tell you this side right here is 9. All right? And they ask you to solve for the missing stuff. All right? So what's missing? Well, angle A is missing. What else is missing? Angle B is missing. What else is missing? Side AB, but we'll call it side what? Little c. Why do we call that little c? because it's opposite big angle C. Everybody got that? All right, so those are the things we're going to find. Now, if you noticed on that worksheet I gave you, they only ask you to solve for one thing, don't they? They just stick an X there, and they just ask you to solve for one thing. But since we're teaching this, I'm going to show you how to solve for everything. Sometimes you'll have, I don't think on these worksheets, but sometimes they're going to say solve the triangle. So how in the world do you solve a triangle? Well, you just solve for all the missing parts. So if this said solve the triangle, what are you solving for? Solving for angle A, and then you're also solving what? For angle B, and you're solving for C. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to solve the triangle. Well, let's see. Do we have one of these situations? Do we have side, 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 or do we have side, angle, side? We have side, angle, side, right. I got a side here, got an angle in between, right? And then I got a side right here. So I've got an angle between those two sides. That is side, angle, side. So we can use the law of cosines. All right, let me write down the law of cosines so we remember it. How's it start off? It starts off, I'll use the C. I'll always use the C when I write out the law of cosines. So it starts off just like Pythagorean theorem. Remember that? So C squared is A squared plus B squared. But then you tag on a little bit more. Minus 2AB cosine of angle C. Remember, this angle has to be opposite that side. Okay? This one right here is set up perfectly for you to use the law of cosines. Okay? There's really no tricks to this at all. It's set up perfectly to use this formula right here. So let's see what we have. What about the C? Is the C opposite, is the side C opposite the angle C in here? Absolutely it is, okay? So I know this is 28 degrees, so that's going to be the capital C. And so this little c over here is opposite the 28, so that's what we're going to use. What would the 11 and the 9 be as far as our equation? Our A and our B, right? Follow that? 11 would be the B, and 9 would be the A, because it's opposite the A. But does it really make any difference which one I put in for A or B? Nope. But it does make a difference which one I put in for C. All right, that's a huge thing. So the C, in this case, has to be the side that's opposite the angle. All right, so we called it C. Now you realize they're not always going to use the letters A, B, C. They could use X, Y, and Z, couldn't they? All right, but just make sure that if you're using this angle for the cosine, this is the side that's sitting here by itself. So I'm going to put C squared equals. Now again, it doesn't matter which one the A or the B is. We'll just do it the way it is though. So that's angle A, so this is side A. So I'm going to put what? 9 squared plus what? 11 squared minus 2. What's going on here? What's that A, B, and that 2 all doing? Multiplying. So I put those in parentheses. So what is the A again? 9. What is the B? 11. And then now what do I write? The cosine of, it's the angle that's opposite this side right here, which is 28 degrees. Always make sure you put the cosine of an angle. Don't ever put the cosine of one of these sides. Everybody understand that? All right. The hardest part about this, you don't have to do any algebra whatsoever. The hardest part about this is just putting it into the calculator. All right, so you're going to have to practice. I've told you this before. If you've ever used your calculator, use it now. All right, this is where you want to practice using your calculator. So let me show you some hints. Just show you a couple hints on using your calculator. One hint is this, is using a parentheses on your calculator. What you're going to do is you're going to go 9 squared plus 11 squared. Then you're going to put minus. Everybody's going to do that, no matter which calculator you have. You're going to go 9 squared plus 11 squared. And then hit minus. Now watch, this is what you're going to do. You're going to hit a left parentheses. I put it in a different color so it stands out a little bit. Hit a left parentheses, and then you can put 2 times 9 times 11. Now, if you have a graphing calculator, you would just hit cosine 28. But if you have a TI-30XA, you would hit what? Times 28 cosine. And then, if you started a parentheses, you got to end it, right? So you end it right there. Then you hit equals. But then you got to get C by itself. That's all that stuff is equal to C squared. So what do you have to do? Take the square root. All right, so let's try it again. Hit 9 squared. Is anybody playing? I don't know what it is either, to tell you the truth, but let's see what it is. Okay, 9 squared plus 11 squared minus left parentheses 2 times 9 times 11 times 28 cosine. Now, if you just stopped right there, you just have a decimal on your calculator, right? Hit the right parentheses. What does that give you? That gives you all of this. But then what do you have to do? You got to hit equals, and then when you hit equals, that gives you all of this. But then you got to get c by itself. So what else do you have to hit? Square root, and then that'll be your final answer. All right? But it's kind of nice because you can do it all in your calculator. You don't have to like figure out this, write it down, figure out this, write it down, and then punch it in again. Don't do that stuff. All right? Do it all in one shot. But you have to practice it. It's not that hard. Just make sure that you try it until you get it right. So what'd you get for this? 5.2? Is that what you got? Okay. Let me do it on this calculator. All right, so I'm going to go 9 squared. Where's my squared button? Right there. Plus 11 squared minus left parentheses. So this is almost identical to what you're going to be doing on your calculator. So 2 times 9 times 11, right? Now, on my calculator, I can just hit what? Cosine of 28. Now, I just closed that parentheses because I closed in the 28, but then I got to do what else? I got to hit one more parentheses. Do you see that? That first parentheses just closed in the 28, but I got to hit this other parentheses to close that whole thing in. All right? Then I hit equals, then I get that big old number. But that's not my answer, though, is it? What do I have to do? I got to take the square root of it. So in order to take, I could have started off with one big square root. I think it's easier just to do this and then hit square root at the end. So watch, if you're using a calculator like this, you would hit square root of what? Of my answer. Do you remember doing that? How do I hit answer on this calculator? This little button right there. See the ANS? So I hit second function. That's my answer. So what is that answer? It's that 27.17, all that, right? So it's taking the square root of that, hit it, and there's my answer right there, 5.2. Should be the same thing that you got even on your little scientific calculator. So make sure you know how to use your calculator. Make sure you did this and you get 5.2 something. All right? If you didn't, you got to keep trying, keep practicing until you get it. If you're sitting there without a calculator, you should be bringing your calculator to class. Okay, we've been using our calculator a lot here in this chapter. Almost every single lesson in this chapter, I think, we've been using a calculator for this. Okay, and it's a good thing to use your calculator. Usually I kind of talk bad about using a calculator a little bit. Doesn't mean because I don't like calculators. There's some things you can do without a calculator. Not this. Not this at all. You definitely need a calculator to do this. Everybody with me on that? Okay. All right, let's do another type of problem. This type, you actually solved for a side. Guess what other kind of problem they're going to give you? You're going to have to solve for what? An angle. That's right. So let's try that. Let's do one where it's side, side, side. And let's solve for an angle. So let me find one. There's one right there. This is again from the example in the book, so I'm not like taking some crazy example from somewhere. You could always look in the book if you want to see the steps again. This is 3, this is 6 and 8. Alright, and I'll label it the same letters that they do. Oh, you know what I didn't do over here? I said we were going to solve for those angles, didn't I? I didn't solve for the angles. I'll tell you what, let's just not do that right now. Maybe we'll go back. I don't know if we'll have time. I don't think we will. But this time we'll actually solve for an angle. All right? We can actually solve for 2 angles. I think we'll have time to find both angles. Because if I find 2 angles, how do I find the third one? Just taken away from 180, right? So if I find 2, the third one's easy. Okay? Everybody's got their head up, right? Come on, you guys. Come on, this is all brand new stuff. How can you possibly have your head down when you're learning stuff that you've never, ever seen before? That just blows me away. If it's stuff that you've seen and it's stuff like, okay, I already know this, I can almost understand why you put your head down. Okay, but not if it's brand new stuff. I just don't get that. You should be riveted. You should be taking notes like, okay, I'm going to get this stuff. All right, let's do this. Let's solve for, it doesn't really matter. Let's solve for angle M. Is that all right? Let's solve for angle. I just picked one. You could pick any of the 3. I don't care. Let's just solve for angle M. So if this is angle M, what am I going to call this one right here? I'll call this side M, correct? All right. And if this is side or if this is angle P, then this is lowercase p, and this is angle Q, then this is Q. All right. Now we don't have A, B, and C this time, but we have different letters. But we can still use the law of cosines. Let's use the law of cosines. How do you know you're going to use the law of cosines on this to begin with? Because it's side, side, side. Very good. Okay, it's side, side, side. So we're going to use the law of cosines. Everybody with me on that? So let's write this out. Let's write it out with the numbers. So I'm using this for the cosine, right? So this is going to be kind of like the little c out in front, isn't it? So it's going to be 8 squared equals. Now, what's the other two things? It's the other two sides, right? And it doesn't matter what order you do them in. So it's 3 squared plus 6 squared minus a 2. And then what numbers do we put right here? The 3 and the 6. Good. The 3 and the 6. And then we hit cosine of the angle that's opposite this side. It's now the angle that's opposite this side. We don't know what it is, do we? So what are we going to call it? Let's call it M. They actually do use X in the example in the book, but we'll use M because it's angle M. Does that make sense? You cannot take the cosine of one of the sides. You can only take the cosine of an angle. Now watch. This is where you're going to have to do a little bit of algebra. So you want to take notes on this. Okay? You don't want to just sit and watch. You want to write this down. Is anybody budging? All right. See a lot of people with no pencils in their hands and not even moving after I say you need to write this down. See, if it was me and a teacher said, you want to write this down, and if I don't have my pencil in my hand, guess what I would do? And it's not because I'm anything special, just because I want to be a good student. What would I do if a teacher said, okay, you want to write this down? What would I do? I would do what? I would reach for my pen or my pencil, right? I'd pick it up, and I'd be ready to write. Okay? Some of you guys already have pencils in your hands, but some of you guys that don't have pencils in your hands still have yet to reach for your pencil. Don't get it. I just don't get it. But maybe I never will. Let's do some math here. What we want to do is we want to get this by itself. All right? We're trying to solve for angle M. So what we're going to do is get rid of all this stuff that's with the M. We're first going to get rid of the 3 squared and the 6 squared. What is this 3 squared and 6 squared doing to this whole thing? It's adding, isn't it? So how do you get rid of something that's being added? You subtract. Now, in Algebra 1, you would put minus 3 squared minus 6 squared, wouldn't you? Okay? But we're not going to do that here. We know it's going to go away. I just don't want to make it any more of a mess than it's going to be already. All right? So I know it's going to cancel out. But I have to do that to the other side, don't I? So I already have what over here? 8 squared. So what's going to be over here now? Minus 3 squared. And I wouldn't even figure out what these numbers are. I would just keep it 3 squared. I wouldn't put 9. I wouldn't put 36. Okay? I just think it's easier to do it this way because we can put it all into our calculator at the end. So it's minus 3 squared minus what? 6 squared. Okay, so I got rid of those. Now look at this. Look at this. This is a negative 2, isn't it? This is a 3. This is a 6. What are all of these things doing? They're multiplying, right? They're multiplying by all this. How do you get rid of something that's being multiplied? You divide. That's right. So you divide by what? Negative 2 and 3 and 6. Okay? Again, I wouldn't even multiply that stuff together right now because I'm going to do it all in the calculator all at once at the end. So what's going to happen if I divide by all this? It's going to cancel out, isn't it? So what do I have to do to the other side? Divide by what? Negative 2 times what? 3 times 6. See what I just did? So I've only done 2 steps. I got rid of the stuff that's being added, so I subtracted from both sides. Then the stuff that's being multiplied, I got rid of it by dividing. So I divided everything. So all this equals what? The cosine of M. Now this is something that we've done before. How do you get rid of the cosine? Just take the inverse of it, right? So that'll cancel. And what do I do over here? Take the inverse of all that. It was basically 3 steps. You subtracted, you divided, then you took the inverse. It looks complicated, but after you do it a couple times, it's really not that bad. I'm going to leave that up to you. You put that into your calculator, all right? And you should get 122, all right? So try it, and you should get 122 degrees for that angle. What you're going to do now is the worksheet I gave you yesterday, you're going to finish that up. So I think it goes to 16, doesn't it? 9 to 16. So you're going to do that worksheet. You're going to do 9 to 16, and that'll be due tomorrow.